with us now to talk about the regional trends in breweries. We have two folks. We have from the Goat Ridge Brewing Company, Kelly Ash. Kelly's a partner in that company. Kelly, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We also have Kirk Bloemendahl, who's a board member at Take 16 Brewing in Laverne in southwestern Minnesota. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Les.
Kirk, before we had the little break there and we saw the package, you were telling me about how you got started in this. And this is the sort of thing in a small town startup just over morning coffee, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually true. Just a group of guys having coffee in the morning like guys do, and just sitting around the table talking, and literally they come up with the idea of, you know what, we should have a brewery in town. And so they started talking about it and what it would take to do it, and they started talking to some people, and the more people talked, the more it seemed like it could be a real thing. And they were lucky enough to hook up with some people that kind of knew what they would be involved in, how to do it, and we hooked up with we hired a consultant actually out of Wisconsin to help us out, and eventually hooked up with a talented young brewer by the name of Luke Rensink, and that was a real breakthrough, and became a real community effort, and here we are a few years later, and it's a real thing.
So 5 years and Take 16, you're brewing, and you're also doing some events, right, to kind of bring the public in once in a while?
Yeah, we're for the most part a production brewery, so once a week on Thursday evenings we do growler fills, but otherwise we're pretty much a production brewery. In the summer we do special events, block parties we call them, and about every other weekend we actually open up the brew house, set up a bar in the brew house. You can come in and actually drink beer in the brew house, and then outside on our parking lot we have live music and food, and it's a gathering place, and it's a great summer event. It's nothing better than sitting outside drinking beer in the summer, listening to great music and eating great food.
Well, I'm sure Kelly would agree with that idea, because Kelly, your business model is different. You go about 100 miles plus north of Laverne, you get to New London, and you get together with some friends who thought, hey, well, let's have a brew pub. But it took a while to get there, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I remember having our first meeting. It was January 2014, and we opened April 16th of 2015. So about 18, 16 months or so to get it off the ground running. So
yeah, and that's really a brew pub, whereas Kirk's business is brewing. You're a brew pub, right?
That's right, yeah. So we're what we would consider to be a destination brewery. We don't do any distribution. The only place you can find our beer is in our tap room. The only place you can drink our beer is in our tap room, or you can purchase a growler and bring it home as well. But no, our focus is solely on bringing people to our place.
Okay, so but whether it's a brewery or whether it's a brew pub, obviously the trend is here that there's some local interest in this. And so the question is, why? Why is this really caught on in nationally, or for that matter, in Western Minnesota in the last few years? Kirk?
Well, I think it's first of all, it's an experience, and whether it's going to Kelly's place or drinking our beer and coming to our block parties, you're experiencing something local. It brings something unique to town. People are always looking for things to do, places to see, so it fits in with that. It's a locally produced product, and I think that fits in with more of a general trend in society today, where people want to know, what they're eating, what they're drinking, where it came from, who made it. Local ingredients are spectacular if you can get them. All of that fits together, and it's better product than what you can buy from a mass-produced brewery.
So certainly there's a public appeal to this, and that people are interested in it. But I expect one of the challenges is actually getting something like this from the idea stage to a business, because there's got to be a lot of capital involved, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah. The idea is the easy part, and the execution is the hard part. And there are many challenges that come with it. First of all, getting the capital, and whatever source that's going to be. In our case, we have over 80 local investors, and a lot of them are very small investors. So that's a very time-consuming process, to raise that capital. And then you run into all kinds of issues like licensing. In Minnesota, you have to have your plumbing plan approved. You run into local ordinances, just construction. Construction's an adventure in a brewery, especially in a small town. Plumbing is a huge part of any construction process on a brewery, and generally there's nobody in town that's ever done one. So their learning is your learning, and you're doing it together for the first time, and that's a challenge for everybody.
And I suppose in your case, Kelly, you had not only that side of it, but then also the service side on top of it with hours and getting the regular traffic. So that's another layer of complexity?
Yeah, it can be, particularly when you're, I think, uniquely in rural areas trying to drive in traffic that maybe isn't used to this kinds of beer, trying it for the first time, having this type of experience. There's a lot of training that goes into our staff to give them an experience in describing the beer. So actually trying to find staff that's experienced with beer and the flavors and the different kinds can be a unique challenge, but also pretty fun to do some of those trainings and teach people about it, because they're the ones that have to interact with the customers and explain what it is they're drinking, why it's different than maybe something, a regular kind of macro beer they might be drinking. So that is kind of an interesting wrinkle on the service side.
Well, and I suppose also, too, that this gets a little bit be like the price points you find in coffee, where people may be used to diner coffee at a certain price versus going to a coffee shop and having a different price. So are there some of those sort of consumer perceptions that you have to overcome as well?
Yeah, there is. We definitely hear it once in a while from customers that are not used to the prices that we have to charge in our beer. We're putting a lot of ingredients, and it's all about economies of scale, too. Our particular brewery is 2.5 barrels, so we're producing essentially 78-gallon batches. This is small. It's really small. So our economy of scale is going to be quite a bit different than somebody that's producing many hundreds of gallons of beer, or even thousands of gallons of beer at one batch. And so our price points are a little bit different, but what we try to explain is that you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, we feel, at those price points. So.
And what about the scale for you? Because obviously, Kirk, you're not selling necessarily on site except at special events. So what about price points and marketing challenges for your operation?
Yeah, we're a little larger than what Kelly's got. We have a 15-barrel brew house, and we have multiple 30-barrel fermenters. So we're production size, and we're gonna crank out about 2,000 barrels this year, which is still very, very small, but it's larger than your average brew pub. So that's things that we are working on right now. Kelly mentioned production costs, and that's one way to make sure it's successful is to keep your inputs down. And there are things you can do like buying grain in bulk, and we have hops on a commodity contract and things like that. So the more you produce, the more you can do things like that and bring your costs down.
So since you've both been doing this for at least a little while now, I'm sure that if someone's watching this and thinking, oh, this sounds really cool, I bet they'd want to know, what are the lessons? Because you both had to learn some hard lessons, I'm sure. So what are some of the lessons you've learned that you wish you would have known when you started this?
Well, one of the things is to trust what you believe in. And, we've worked with some outside people that, give us advice. And what we found is your situation best. And do your homework and find out all you can about the situation. But in the end, you've got to trust your own instincts because it's your operation and it's going to be yours going forward. And nobody else cares about it as much as you do and knows as much as you do. So trust what you believe in and go with that.
Trust and stay with it, and a lot of hard work, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Kelly?
Yeah, I think I'm smiling just thinking back when we opened, and I would say one big lesson that we learned was being prepared for the traffic you're going to get. We opened and we thought we would have enough product to supply the demand, and it was touch and go there for a little while where we were barely keeping up. We tried to keep 7 different beers on tap at all times, and there was one point in the summer walking in, I think we maybe had 2 or 3, and we're sitting there brewing as fast as we can in the back, but there's only so quickly you can turn the stuff around. And so I think, when you first open, recognizing that initial impression, that first impression that people have coming into your place is a big impact, and making sure you're prepared for that and you're prepared to deliver is kind of a lesson learned that on our end, I know.
So we've got the idea of stay true to your idea, be prepared, have the capital. Okay, so if someone says, okay, what's the first step in starting a business like this? What would the first steps be? I mean, if you were to give advice to someone who wants to get into the business.
Well, I think the first thing is you've got to have a product that people want to consume. So in our case, we hooked up with a young brewer, and he had a little track record of actually brewing beer that was distributed. So we felt good about that. And then while we were raising capital, we also did tastings. So we did 2 years of tastings before we sold anything. So we knew right off the bat which beers we wanted to put out, and we came out with 4 beers right off the bat at the same time. So
were the results of the taste test surprising? I mean, did people like what you thought they were going to like?
Yeah, the surprising part, it sounds like I'm bragging, but the surprising part was we didn't have a beer that people said, I really don't like this. So different people like different styles, so everybody had their favorite. But it was pretty universal that people really, really just liked it. And we felt really good about that and felt good about who we were having brew the beer. And I think that's the most important part.
Yeah. Kelly?
Well, I think Kirk absolutely nails it, is making sure the product you're producing is worthy enough to have demand, right? I think that's right on. And doing that work and making sure that you're producing something that is going to be bought. Past that, I think also it's sitting down and looking at your market and trying to figure out, there's a big difference between, you know, the scale at which you're producing and the demand for that. And when you start looking at brewing systems, they have these various levels of 2.5 brewing barrel system, 5 barrel, and all of a sudden you're up to 10 and 20. And you don't want to go too big, you don't want to go too small. And so really trying to nail down that number of where you think you can produce and get demand, and you're producing enough but not too much, I think is really important. So checking out your numbers, looking at your area businesses, how much traffic could you honestly expect, and be realistic about it, both for big and small, and then trying to match the brewing system with that demand, I think is important.
So after 5 years and a few months in this business, you both have a sense, either from studying or working in it, what it's like. What's the next big wave in this? Are we going to see a lot more of these across rural America, or are we sort of at a point where there's a certain equilibrium, or what's next in the business?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah, it's a crystal ball, I know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the number of breweries will continue to go up. At some point, I think the number of production breweries, there's got to be a limit, because there's only so much shelf space. There's only so many distribution channels. So there is going to be, I think, at some point, a cap on how much can be distributed, and that obviously affects us. The brewpub model, I think, there's still enough cities that can support the traffic that I think that those numbers I would expect to continue to grow, and it'll just get bigger. The market share, the total U.S. beer market has been flat for, I think, at least 10 years. But the share attributed to craft beer has grown double digits every year that I've been tracking, and I'm sure Kelly's done the same thing. So I don't see that ending anytime soon.
Kelly?
Yeah, I think Kirk talks well about kind of the market, and that's definitely trends I'm seeing as well. I think there's still room in the market for small town breweries popping up, and more of that kind of taproom style non-distribution. I think you're right with the distribution market. There might be some sort of threshold that we may be approaching sometime, maybe in the future here. But also, I think just looking at the product trends, it's kind of funny. I think every brewery you go into, they have their IPA, their Mumford & Sons IPA, right? And I think what you're starting to see is, as people's tastes are gradually getting acclimated to this type of beer, there's becoming a little bit more in a shift, and you're starting to see it more in urban areas. And I think you'll start to see that trickle down in some of the rural breweries now, but particularly around lagers. And some more interesting kind of back to the more kind of lighter lager type beers. And then I think there's room in the market for more sours as well coming up. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what a lot more breweries start coming out with here in the near future.
Great. Well, I wish we had more time, but we're out of time. So I want to thank both of you. Kirk Blumenthal from Take 16 Brewing in Luverne, and Kelly Esch from Goat Ridge in New London. Thanks for joining us on Compass.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's all for this week on this part of Compass, and I'd like to take you next to our Compass Literature Corner. Laura K. Prosser will take it from here. Thanks for watching.